That joke sucks. That joke sucks. That joke sucks so much. I'm going to put that one right up top. Yeah, what's up? Yeah? No, it's okay. I mean, I'm just running through the monologue and figuring out what I'm going to do today. Yeah, you want to tell me something that's going on today? Can you just show me the graphic and let me go ahead and see it? No. We're going to have to keep making these shows, huh? Fine, fuck it. Just start the show. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Early Late Night, a show that, according to Los Angeles County, isn't going anywhere for the next 3 months. I know the world sucks sometimes, but don't worry, I read the news so you don't have to. Our top story. Donald Trump stormed out of a press conference yesterday after being asked questions by 2 female reporters. Come on, Trump. You just can't walk out on these women. They aren't your first 2 wives. New reports suggest that check-in times for flights could now last more than 4 hours. And on Spirit Airlines, they'll actually ask you to help fuel up the plane. Can you imagine how terrible this is going to be for dads everywhere? Hey, get in the car. We should have been there 7 hours ago. Dr. Anthony Fauci testified in Congress today and warned that states that reopen too quickly risk needless suffering and death. Coincidentally, needless suffering and death is Florida's slogan. Governor Andrew Cuomo recently told listeners on a radio interview that he is currently single. Yes, Cuomo is single, and if you are 6 feet away, he is ready to mingle. The NFL says that they are still set to open on schedule for this year's season, though as per tradition, concussions will still be on a slight delay. The former head of Telemundo Enterprises was named the new head of news departments at NBC, which means the news is about to get a lot more louder and spicier. And finally, bad news, theater fans. Broadway looks like it will be closed for the summer. Except for the Phantom of the Opera, which will run until the end of time. Oh, in fact, I think you can still hear it right now.
The Phantom of the Opera is here, inside your mind.
And that'll do it for our monologue. Let's do the walkover. Oh my goodness, thank you guys so much for watching Early Late Night. We hope you're following us on all of our major social media platforms. So that means Early Late Night on YouTube, the other one, Facebook. You're watching that right now, probably on Facebook. And Twitter. Follow us there too, and at Grappling Hour on Twitch. But first, we've got some business to take care of. There was a huge story that I think fell through the cracks that other shows didn't really pay attention to, but here at Early Late Night, we neglect nothing. Every stone is turned around and shown for you guys. So we thought that we would actually take a closer look at what's going on over at Disney World over in Florida. There were some headlines that were made as a man in Florida, I know, once again, actually seemed to sneak his way in to Discoveryland at Disney World. We were lucky enough to get that man for an interview right after we posted bail. Let's go live directly over to interview. No, sir. What are you doing back in Disney World?
Yeah, no, I had to come back. I mean, hey, it's the most magical place on earth, Raph. Why would I want to be anywhere else? Everywhere else is sad. This is actually a lot of fun when you think about it.
But why are you there?
Well, I thought about it and they caught me coming in once and they took me out and I went to jail and I was like, this is no fun. Where would I go if I could go anywhere when this is done? And I thought the same place that all quarterbacks go when they've won the Super Bowl, I'm going to Disney World. So here I am.
Are you aware that they have closed down Disney World right now?
No. I'll tell you what I told the police. What a lot of people don't understand, including the media, is that I'm actually a season pass holder. So I have a pass and that means that I can get in. I just climb the fence and swim upstream and I make it right over here. No problem. It's not a problem at all. Plus, there's nobody here. I couldn't get sick. I'm the only one. I don't know why more season pass holders aren't taking advantage of this, but I don't necessarily want the word to get out because I'm having a really great time.
So what are you doing there when no one's there?
Oh, it's great, Raph. You can get on pretty much any ride you want to. There's not a single line. Out of respect, I did still buy a fast pass online. I can't check in with it anywhere. And the roller coasters don't work, so I mostly just walk across the tracks real slow on my tiptoes. but I'm still able to see most of the sights. It's kind of dark. It's a little scary, but if you close your eyes and sing the songs like I do, you can get the most out of it. It's a good time.
There's nobody there right now, so I can't imagine there's any food.
Yeah, it's the wildest thing. You would have thought that, they would have cleaned out the trash cans and things when the park abandoned, but I think they kind of just left them. And the pretzels and churros seem to be holding up just fine. And I don't think popcorn has an expiration date at all.
Does it get lonely there? Or, I mean, it's got to feel weird, especially that big of a place with no parades now.
Oh, no, no, no. They still have the parades.
What?
Yeah. We still do the parades every night. It's a good time.
How does that even work?
Oh, well, I kind of conduct Fantasia, and I let things run through. And so it works pretty well. And if things are really dragging along, I don't have a problem playing multiple characters.
That doesn't sound right. What are you doing for sanitation there? Aren't you worried about it being, a little unclean?
No. There's a number of rides, as you're probably familiar with, that have some sort of water element to them, and I usually just swim around in those. It makes me a little blue for a couple hours, but it usually wears off.
God, that's terrible. Do you have any idea what's going on outside of Disney World right now? Are you aware of the COVID-19 situation or the virus that we're all trying to combat?
No. I actually try to avoid the outside world as much as possible. Every once in a while, some papers will blow in from like Universal, and I'll read a couple words, but I really try not to pay much attention to the national media.
Gotcha. Okay. That's starting to make more sense now that I'm thinking about it.
Okay. Oh, Rap, it actually looks like, so they do have some essential workers. It's just a bunch of guys in the goofy costumes, and they're coming around, I think, to do some sweeping and check to make sure nobody's, vandalizing the property or anything. I've got to go hide out, but I thank you so much for this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. We will be reporting you.
Rap, I would caution you against it because, as I always say, snitches get Lilo in stitches. So watch yourself. I will find you, and I can sneak in if I have to, which I haven't, but I can. So keep your mouth closed. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.
We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, I am so happy to welcome back a guest, a friend of the show that, man, last time we saw him, he was doing funny things on our stage, but even more impressively, I always love when I take a moment, I watch a show that I really like, and then I see my friends on there. And he absolutely crushed it on My Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. Like, every scene, I was like, that's dope, that's dope. That musical number was dope. I didn't know he had that in him. And then, to top things off, this man not only hosts podcasts, he's going out there hosting trivia shows, especially in this whole pandemic, which we fucking need right now. But he recently made his debut as a comic on Stephen Colbert. I mean, there are so many things that overlap between late night and being excited and happy for our good friend, one, Mr. Danny Jolles. Danny, how you doing, sir?
Oh, what an intro. That was the nicest.
Well, hey, be real, dude. You've done a lot of shit since we've last seen you, my friend.
It's been a while. It's been a good journey, but also, I always, from an outside, I think it always looks like, oh man, you're doing so much. But from the inside, it's been just this, it feels like nothing's changed, but I know that things have like grown, but it's wild. It's also just so hard to like factor in where I was prior to all this, because life has just become like my living room. So now I'm just like, well, what was I doing before all this?
I have come to tell people when someone says that was last week, I've just been like, you mean last year?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, everything, it's just so hard to tell what time of day it is and linear, and like it's just impossible. And the feeling of slowly accepting that and just being like, okay, I'm just gonna have to, like, because I always was like, I want to turn in this script by this point, and at a certain point I was like, I don't know why I'm doing these things to people. Nobody cares. Nobody wants me to do these things to them.
Well, I just saw, like, you're speaking about the pandemic right now where we're all at home. So if anybody in the future, I don't know why, but hopefully you will watch it in the future. We were all stuck at home for an extended period of time. And more importantly, I saw today there was even a film scholarship that they're offering to somebody who could figure out how to do a social distancing script. And my first thought wasn't, ooh, I want to do that. My first thought was just like, well, what the fuck story are you going to tell? I'm too bummed out to write about that.
Well, what was that? There was a movie that Moses Storm was in that was like all about like a bunch of kids on like a chat and someone dying. I mean, like the problem is I think that by the time somebody wrote the script, figured out how to get into production, produced it, and got it edited, I think we'll probably be somewhere further along filming wise as a society. So I don't think it can catch up. But look, I love people trying to be creative in this period. I think that I think the easy thing, like I like the Zoom shows and I like I don't like them, but they're the best we have.
Yep.
So we all have to try to make the best thing we can make right now. And when that's over, we will never do this again. But for right now, we got to make the things we can make. So I'm a big go for it fan. I'm gonna go for it.
Can I ask, what has been the best thing that you've made during this whole stay at home?
My body. I've really been okay. I am going to work on my fitness in a way I've never worked on it before, and that has been my main focus.
So talk me through that. What does that entail?
At first, I was doing Beachbody.com, and then I started this guy called Eric the Trainer, does free Zoom classes every day, 2 a day, and I love them because they're at a time. Mm-hmm. So I have a schedule of like today it was 10 and 1. So I woke up and I was like, well, I have a 10 o'clock thing and a 1 o'clock thing. And then it's good. It starts giving me a schedule for the day, which is great because as we said, time is very hard to figure out in this current climate, but I had a schedule today and I worked out and I ate well and I had and it's just something I can control. I'm a big, what can I do? And so my biggest thing during this thing has been let's take that time we never thought we'd have to work on our body and let's see what we can do.
Do you feel energized? Do you feel creatively set? Have you had to make concessions for COVID? Are you running? So it's all inside that you're doing then, right?
Yeah, it's all inside.
Okay.
All inside. Can't, the running thing, the girlfriend isn't super into me running. I've been walking, but the running thing, it's just hard. It's just hard if someone's coming towards you, it's and I'm a big, there's no reason to be pushing, particularly, I'm personally believe there's no reason to be doing anything crazy right now. Let's listen to them. Let's do what we're told to do. We're going to get out of this eventually. And I'm sweating up a storm doing this. I'm fine. I feel I'm tired at the end. I don't need any more.
That's fair, man. Yeah, I don't know. I always enjoy, because I say the science changes almost daily, or you get new information or better information as it goes on. I almost feel it's akin to one day you get an article that says, go take a run. And the next day it was whatever you do, don't run. And I'm I don't know.
I know.
Tell me, important science people, this is your job.
I felt very on top of things for the first couple weeks. I felt like I really understood what the goals were and what was and now literally I was talking with a friend earlier today. I was I don't even know what the goals are anymore. What are we trying to accomplish right now? I don't know. And I can't figure it out. So I just try to listen and read, but I agree. I've really entered a place of I no longer understand. I don't understand.
Yeah. All right. Well, one thing I think we should mention right up top, I know we can talk about it a little bit later, but a lot of people are always looking what are you doing? What are you watching? I mean, you've got something that just blew up on Amazon, and what is the name of that?
Sure. Well, and how lovely a plug. It's called, I'm in a movie called Blowing Up Right Now. It was a movie I made. It was that I got the honor of being in about a year ago, opposite Sujata Day of Insecure, and it is a way too topical movie about a couple that breaks up and then gets a text saying there's a bomb heading towards LA, and so they are locked in their apartment together. Which is, right down the middle of the situation, and so. And so it's really cool. It's a really sweet it's a very sweet little rom-com, and it just went to it's been on, video on demand, and it just got officially on Amazon Prime, which is just lovely because now people can see it for free. And it's cool. It's cool to have like a thing. This is such a period of like, oh, it's exciting to have like a thing be like, oh, everyone can go see this thing I did, and I can feel like I'm, new people are seeing it. But it's a great sweet little rom-com.
Well, that's a good escapism fare, but I like the idea that it is kind of nice in some ways when you see these TV shows of people at their house. Like I've seen certain stars without their makeup, people touching them up, now doing Zooms and everything, and I'm like, ha, you look like us now. Ha, enjoy that.
I know. It's so funny being like, yeah, I feel like I'm so, like, I look the same, and it's so fun being somebody who's like, I've always looked like this. This is exactly what I've always looked like. And there's so many people who it's like their whole thing was like looking perfect, and I'm like, yeah, you can't. We're all gonna have to see what you look like.
Yeah, and now I've just resorted to telling people I'm growing out my hair for a role. Like, I'm not acting in anything, but I'm like, in LA, if you just tell somebody you're growing it for a role, they're like more sympathetic. Like, oh, I understand.
Have you yet done a quarantine haircut?
No, I have not. Although I can't say this too loud because if I do, she'll hear it. My wife's in the other room and she's desperately trying to cut my hair. And like, I gotta be honest with you, dude. My head is too obtuse. Like, it's not a head that is a starter head for haircuts. So I'm trying to be like.
So I gave in about a week and a half ago.
Okay.
I had said the same thing to my girlfriend. I was like, we're not doing it. Not doing the haircut. And then I think like they extended it another month, and I was like, and my hair was really starting to balloon out. My hair the hair just doesn't grow. It just grows out. It just looks hard. It's very dewy. And it's just like the worst. And I was like, oh, I think it just had to happen. So I was like,
you look
let's
fine,
do it.
Though. So she did a good job.
She did such a good job. She watched a YouTube video. And then, I mean, listen, she dropped the scissors and or comb probably 15 different times during the process. Every single time was like a true panic. It turns out it's hard to balance them all, but it worked out great. And she did a good job. You'd be surprised. I would say that people are simultaneously realizing that like having a great haircut is a true skill, and I think everyone's going to appreciate hairdressers on the other side of this. Mm-hmm. But I will say that we also have realized that doing a mediocre haircut, not as hard as you think. Turns out it's a YouTube video away.
I'm going to go to all the cosmetology schools and just be like, you're just one step away from mediocre, everybody. Bad haircut. And I've gotten bad haircuts where I've gone out of a place. Like, there was one person who cut my hair in Illinois, and I used to hate getting my hair cut out there. But I would be like, oh, it's not home like California. There's one person who knows my head, and her name's Maria. I need her. But when I was out in Illinois, I went in, and it happened to be a student day, and this poor young student was cutting my hair. And then like her checker comes over, looks at my head, and is like, you did it wrong. And I'm just sitting there kind of like, oh man, I'm freaking out. That's not nice. And then at the very end of it, she comes back and she goes, you did it. Oh no, you didn't do it wrong. That's just the shape of his head. Honey, you don't have a bad head. It's just, you're fine. It's just, hey, get it right. Okay, bye everybody. And leaves. And I go, I never want to get a haircut again. This is terrible.
Why would you do student day? Why did you accept such a timing?
Well, when you live in a student town, you don't really get too many days that aren't student days. And more importantly, it looked like a younger based area. Whereas if I went to a different place, I might look like some of the other folks there, and which I think they have one haircut, and that's just what everybody gets. And I was like,
sure.
This is not what we do with that one. Let's talk about more than hair, though. Let's talk about my crazy ex-girlfriend, because again, you came in on a show that I already liked. And then when you show up, it's so dope because for you especially, I didn't have a fear like, oh, he's not going to do well. I just got so stoked to see every time you made an appearance. And I just thought you kept killing it. How did you get that role? How did that all come together?
So I've known Rachel since college. We've been friends for over a decade now. With that said, when she got the show, it was kind of like this thing of like, it's very hard to get your friend on a show. So we had, we'd just been friends and support each other, and was like, and then I'd visited set once, and then she sent me in. She was just trying to get me something quick, and so I went in for a role, and I didn't book it. Classic. And then I went in again, and the second time I went in, the casting director, Felicia, I went in for like a one line. It was like, it was a lawyer in Jap Battle. I was just supposed to be one of the lawyers in the background. Rachel thought that'd be funny. It was a quick role, gets me a credit on my resume. It was like perfect. And I went in for that, and the casting director was like, remembered me from the first time and was like, can you actually read for this other role? So Felicia's the one who really switched me. Went out, read for George, which was a 3-line co-star nothing role. Did it, booked that role. Literally on set, Rachel was like, oh, you're not a rapping lawyer. You're this other guy. But then it was like, oh, it's a guy in the office. So it was like a very exciting kind of like, ooh, I've sort of in an interesting place now. It still took like, because I said 3 lines in season 1, never showed up again. Halfway through season 2, like came back. And then from there, it was like, it's funny because I think the same experience you had viewing it of like, well, Danny's here again, was literally my experience filming it, which was like, it probably wasn't until like halfway through season 3 even I like had the moment of like, I think I'm really a part of this. It just kept being every time I got booked being like, I got booked again. I cannot believe they're giving me another opportunity. Like it was real. And the early, like one of my early bits was I was getting fired. And every single time I got fired in the script, I was like, I think this is the end of the run. Like I'd be like, I'm done. And then, they'd be like, you're coming back. And I'd be like, great. They're like, and we're firing you again. It's like, no. All right. Well, this is the end of the run. And what a run it's been. Like I kept thinking it was the end of the run. And then at a certain point, it just became like, I think I'm a part of this thing. It was so cool. And it was really nice because I really got to experience it because I kept thinking it was the end. So I kept having these moments of like, what a great time. What an amazing experience. Then it was like, back again, and then be like, all right, well, what an amazing experience. And then it was later, it just kept going.
I think part of the thing that made your characters so beautiful in that ensemble is that it genuinely felt like a number of times you got to be the audience because they would give you, and your performance of it was so great. It was always like all crazy, surreal, hyper realistic kind of stuff happening around them. And then you kind of with the drop in of being like, wait, what? And then as it would hit you, I would always be like, yeah, that's what I would do in that situation. Like if somebody bursts down into song around me, there's got to be a character that's going to be like, hi, I'm confused by what's generally happening. Did we all get a song chart? Am I supposed to know this? So I found that to be so reliably hilarious. And then they decide to give you a song. So what did it feel like when you first got a song?
So my first song was George's Turn, which was like halfway through season 2. And that was like, I mean, that was one where that was just a gift. Right. Like, it was just like, I read it and I was like, oh, I can't believe they haven't done this joke yet. This is clearly the funniest joke on the planet. It was really mine to screw up. And so I was just like, oh, I can't believe I have this. I mean, I was just like, it just was one of these things where you read it and you're like, oh, I didn't just get a song. I got a bit that is so funny. And so then it was like, Kabir directed that episode, and he and I had already become close. It was like that'll go down as one of the best days of my life. Will be the day we filmed that, because it was just like, I just knew it was going well, and it was just so exciting. And then it was so great. And then honestly, the scariest ones was the ensemble songs. Being a part of like the ensemble songs, because that's where, Donna Lynn and Bella and Vinny are dancing around you. And you're like, well, they're incredible. These are Broadway talents. And I have no clue what I'm doing. Everybody on the cast is like an incredible musical theater performer. And then it was like me, just a comic hanging on for dear life. But So those were the ones where I was like, oh, those are the ones you would stress out about. And then even when I got a full song in season 4, I found out about that reading the script. Like it was a very like the way they would tell, they would just trusted us at a certain, once they trusted you on that show, it was so nice. Once you felt the writers trust you, and Aline and Rachel, they just were so like, yeah, we trust you. And so I literally found out I had a full song getting the script. I got the script for that episode and was like reading through it, and I was like, "Ooh, I have a little part of a song. Oh, I have a lot of us. I think this is a Danny. What is happening?" Like I remember, like I think like texting Rachel, being like, "Do I have a song?" She's like, "Has no one told you yet?" It was like, it's that way. It was that way the whole time. They just would trust you. It was great. Best.
Well, there's one thing that came to me that I realized, and maybe I put myself in your shoes in this respect, which was when I saw the live show for the series. We'll get to the live show after because I have a couple questions on that. But the live show for the series, when it was there, I realized that, yeah, maybe you might have felt that way, but there's something tangible about stand-up experience translating, because as much as they're used to being song and dance, you're used to reading that laugh in a room. So that's just as equal, if not more important information when you're trying to convey a comedy that has to exist in a completely different realm. So to me, I looked at you and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, no, this checks out. What did that feel like to do the live show?
Yeah. And I will say this is I think the best thing stand-up does for you as a performer is it teaches you your strengths. Mm-hmm. Like part of doing stand-up is being like, oh, I'm good at this, and this thing when I do it on stage doesn't work. Because you're getting so basically stand-up is just feedback. Like you just get so much feedback. So throughout the entire show, I always knew like what I do. As an actor, I try to always know what do I do well, what do I not do well. Don't do the things you don't do well. Hit the things you do well. And with that, with that live show was like, particularly right before the song, being like, I know how to milk this. I know how to do that well. And I know how to play a joke in a bit. And then when I actually had to sing, terrifying. But that was, and I had to follow Skylar, who is one of the best voices on the planet. And it was just like to follow him with like a song was terrifying, but it was great. Yeah, no, I mean, stand up will always be like, it's my favorite thing on the planet. And it is so helpful for everything in life if you know how to do it, because you just know yourself.
So then did you go on part of the tour with them? And what was that experience like? Because they did like a little bit of a tour after the show, right?
So they did a tour between season 3 and 4. There was like a tour. I was not a part of that tour. Although I like dropped in on the West Covina show, but for the most part I didn't. But I wasn't supposed. But for the most part I did. And then when the show ended, I did the Radio City shows, which was amazing. And then Rachel started to tour, and I opened for her and performed with her, which was like the best. And hopefully when all this is over, we can continue doing that, because that was so fun.
I mean, that's got to be a great relationship. I love the creativity, the smartness of it. Like, I remember when I first saw the show, my wife was like, let's watch it. And then from the immediate get-go of them giving props to West Covina, growing up as a kid in Hacienda Heights my whole life, I was like, oh my God. Like, you never expect the bullseye is going to hit you. So it was just like, no, we're not supposed to exist in film or television. Mm-hmm. Who's doing this? And so to me, when I saw that first episode, I was like, they can't possibly do songs every goddamn episode. That's just not going to last. And yet they did. And all of the songs were so good. So a lot of credit went to my wife on that. But that partnership of having somebody that you can open for, that you've collaborated with, that you've worked on their show for, that's got to feel so great. So was that what you were doing right before the pandemic?
No, we did the last one of those like end of last year, and then Rachel was pregnant enough where we had to go off the road, and she just had her baby. She's lovely, and I can't wait to someday meet it. It's been very frustrating, but we so we went off the road. So no, right before it, I was acting. I just had picked up a couple like nice small roles and was auditioning, and doing the normal stand-up shows. Like the Rachel shows are such like a unique gift of a stand-up experience. But I was just doing a ton of stand-up and a ton of auditioning, and those were going really well. And then pandemic.
Right. Well, I mean, here's the good news. She's not short on stuff. She's got a nanny, show that she's working on. She's always got like 20 different projects as is. I got to tell you though, on a personal level, it's hilarious to me because I'm working on a show that Vella's on, and it's hard for me to not contain and be like, oh, you were so good in that. Like when she's coming around the office and I'm doing like paperwork and whatnot, I can't just be like, hey, that was a really good episode of My Crazy Ex-Girlfriend.
Oh, you absolutely can. Bella's the nicest person on the planet. She's very nice. She's an absolute gem of a human, and full recommendations to do that. She's so Bella. I mean, everybody on the show. The show is as tight a group as you. A lot of things in Hollywood are fake, and I've been a part of plenty of things where I've been like, I've seen the way it's played out afterwards and been like, that was not true. That cast is really as close as you think it is. Like we all are so close. We all talk all the time. It is as wildly good a group of humans as it really does seem. And Bella is no exception. She's a wonderful person. If you see her around the office, she's just a treat to talk to.
Well, I'm sure we'll have more extended ones once we come back from pandemic because I like my show. I like the people on it too. And I heard great things. I knew a couple of people who worked on your show and they said wonderful things about it. So to me, it was nice to have intel on multiple sides from people who were working behind the scenes and just being like, I like your show, so I can't wait to see it. I do want to bring this up though, because obviously that's a thing. I would suggest this though. If you get the chance to relay this to the powers that be, I would say, I mean, I'm up for a reunion if you guys can Zoom something together. I just keep seeing all these other show do things, and I'm just saying, I'm not in charge of anything, nor do I have an importance on this, but I have a voice, and God damn it, I will use it. I need to see fucking songs from that show, because I'm not going to watch a Disney one. That's not going to work for me. I've done that. I grew up with Disney. I'm good. Give me the sexy getting ready song, and give me that on Zoom, and I'm good.
Let me tell you, my phone lines are open. I'm certainly open to a call. But I don't know. I mean, I'll say this: we've done cast Zooms. The cast has seen each other via Zoom a bunch. I think that I wonder. I don't know if it happened. It'd be great, but it's also like those things are hard. I think they're really difficult, and I can't imagine the logistics of it for songs, particularly. Yeah, I would imagine it'd be hard, but I don't know.
Listen, this is no further than me just yelling. Headline on this one reads: "Crazy man screams into camera, into Ethernet bundle," but.
Actor responds back. I don't know. Actor responds back. I don't know, but it's not a bad. It's not. You're not wrong. Every show seems to be doing it.
Hey, listen. I years ago had to give up happy endings, and when they give you a morsel of something in pandemic, it's the little hope you get. Community comes back. I keep seeing all these different shows being like, "We're gonna do a cast reading," and I was like, "I'll take it." Literally anything. Yeah. Content-wise, when Parks came back, I was just like, oh, I don't deserve this, but I will accept it from my heart. Let me ask you this, man. So first off, you've got Everything But the Scores. Tell me a little bit about this podcast that you put together, sir.
Yeah. I have a podcast called Everything But the Scores. It's about so I'm a huge sports fan, and I hate that people who don't watch sports feel so alienated, and I hate that those of us that watch sports are just constantly hit with stats and, a bunch of former athletes talking about what it's like to be an athlete. And so basically Everything But the Scores is about all the stories around sports, be it, Earl Thomas this week and his mistress, his wife putting a gun to his head, or, Will Allen going to jail for 6 years for running a Ponzi scheme, whatever. It's just stories that anybody can get into and it's really fun. And I the way I just say it is, you don't have to do math to appreciate Breaking Bad, and there's a lot of really great stories in sports that you don't have to be obsessive with sports to appreciate. So I do it at least once a week with my girlfriend has become my permanent guest because she's trapped in the house with me.
Okay.
And then on occasion I'll have there's a bunch of crazy ex people I've dragged on there. So some particularly past episodes had a lot of people, and then now it's just so hard to get everybody to get people. But yeah, so that's what it's about. And it's really fun. And whether you've watched a ton of sports, no sports, you'll have a good time.
How did it come together? Because obviously there's the want to bridge that, but the actual impetus to make it happen had to, I assume, come from somewhere deep.
Yeah, I mean, I just was, I've really wanted to get into the sports world for forever. In the way that like you're doing MMA stuff, like I just really was like, oh, I love sports. I've tried to pitch sports stuff for years now. Hollywood is very hesitant to do sports stuff.
Sure.
Inexplicably to me. We'll never understand it. Just don't get it. But they're very scared of it. And at a certain point, I was like, all right, it just hit me like they're never going to come around on my sports ideas. And so, but I was like, man, I just love talking about this kind of stuff. And so I just sort of did I just got some podcast equipment and was like, feels doable. And it's great. It's been really great. And then honestly, I sort of started being like, well, see what I think. And then I so quickly was like, oh, I love talking about it. I could talk about sports stories and I mean, the Astros cheating scandal alone is hours on that podcast has been dedicated to tracking that story. And it's so fun. So it was just one of those things like, oh, I'll start it. And then it became like my absolute favorite thing.
Yo, I mean, if there's anything we're learning from ESPN's The Last Dance right now, it's that we're craving it. Like when Kevin Burns is out here telling us, listen, The Last Dance isn't a good documentary. I'm like, you're right, but not now, Ken Burns. I'm not in that place. I'm going to eat and chew this up like it's the best documentary I've ever seen because it's what I got right now.
And I'll say this, he's not wrong. I think there is a lot we'll wait for it to end. I have yet for them to really get into Michael Jordan the way I want them to.
Sure.
They're being very sweet with their Michael Jordan coverage. And I'm waiting for some of the stories we've heard about Michael Jordan to really be talked about. But I agree. It's been phenomenal to watch. We did a thing at the start of this because the particularly early in the pandemic, there was truly no sports.
Right.
Now there's starting to be sports stories again. We're starting to get back into it. So I was going over old stories with like people, and that was so like I did an episode with Jackie Tone from Glow about Mae Young.
Yeah,
I don't know if you know who Mae
course.
Young is. Yeah. She'd never heard of Mae Young, and I took her through Mae Young, and it was so fun to like see somebody get to experience like that interesting tale. And it was a story of anyone can understand that story. It's very easy to understand. And that was just so we've just sort of done, it's been really fun. I have a really fun time doing the podcast, and I love very nice listeners, and anybody's welcome to join.
Aww. See, that's a sweet pitch. I get a sport where a lot of the guys are just more like, if you don't do this, you're lame. And it's like, no, we're not going to get people that way, you know?
Oh, yes and no. I mean, I think that MMA, there's a lot of mutual respect, which I love for the most part, post-fight.
Sure.
There's a lot of appreciation of each other. I love MMA, and I think some of them are really cool people. And it's like any sport. I mean, it's like, look, I think that the way sports coverage works, they tend to typically focus on the worst of the athletes.
Sure.
I think, and I would say that I tend to focus on the best of athletes. I tend to push aside the bad ones and pretend they don't exist. And love the UFC fight card on Saturday. I didn't really pay attention to that first fight on the main card, but the rest of those fights sure were great. The Greg Hardy fight. Pretended that one didn't happen. But so that's what I do. That's how I tend to. Yeah, but I love the good story. There's so many good athletes out there, and there's so many they're cool people.
I gotta tell you, man, it is nice to have everybody watching that because we interview a number of these fighters, and I know a handful of them that are on big cards like this, and I'm always like, man, I'm glad they're getting their shine. Like tomorrow night, unusual, there's going to be a UFC card on. One of my buddies is the third fight in the main card. And I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, dude, I hope that goes great. I hope, obviously, they take care of you guys. But I think the one thing that's interesting about it is that I keep telling people, I'm like, the reason why we're so hard on people like Dana White and all these people is they're first. And if they don't do it right, it means we're going to have even more difficulty going forward to try and do our things. So that's why I keep telling people, I'm like, everybody just kind of like, let's learn and grow as we go. Let's correct our mistakes. And let's be open to how we fix things because Lord knows we don't have a Seabiscuit right now that helps unite the country. So all of these little micro stories are like forming a Voltron Seabiscuit to make us feel good.
I also will say this. I think like every comic, I initially saw Zoom comedy shows go and was like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Not doing this. I'm not doing the Zoom comedy thing. That's not stand up. That's not the way it's meant to be done. Not me. And then, you know, I had WWE and UFC very early, you know, started doing things without audiences. And it was weird and it's not good.
Yeah.
But I also was watching being like, better than nothing.
Yeah.
Like they're giving us entertainment. They're taking the situation and they're going to go, well, we're going to make something.
Yeah.
We're going to create something. And I was very like inspired by it. And that is what has made me like get into the Zoom thing as much as I can. And like as much as I can into like trivia and all these things I'm trying to do just because I'm like, hey, it's the best we can do right now. And if professional wrestlers can fight without a crowd, then there's got to be a way for comedy to exist in this world.
Absolutely. My wife and I were laughing because she walks in yesterday or 2 days ago. I don't even remember where we are anymore. But when she walks in, she goes, are we watching a Money in the Bank? And I go, yeah. Haven't you heard? WWE is a sport now. So this is for all intents and purposes our Monday night or Sunday night football. So deal with it. This is what we're doing. And she's just like, yeah, all right. And she doesn't fight either. She's just like, yeah, okay. And then at one point there's a food fight that happens and she's looking at me like, and I'm like, I didn't do it. Shut up. We're just I'm not in charge of this. I didn't do it. But I'm going to enjoy it for what it is. And you know what? It's been fantastic. You mentioned
I loved it.
You loved it. Did you watch it?
Yeah, I watched Money in the Bank.
I didn't know that you were a fan, sir. So that's why it's hard to gauge. I know when you said Mae Young, that could be something that's historically important. How far does your fandom go back to?
I think like most of us, I think that I think I have a similar story to most people who aren't obsessive, which is fan as a kid, dropped off around college, stayed off for a while, got back into it at a certain point, you know, sort of had the period of like, it's kind of lame.
Yep.
And then sort of stopped at a certain point, was like, I'm going to stop fighting my instinct to like this thing.
Right.
Because it's all it was. It was just me being like, it's not cool to like, so I'm not going to like it. And at some point I was like, I think I really like it. And now I'm like super into it. I absolutely love AEW.
Awesome.
I think what they're doing is sensational. And their last show without a crowd was the Dynamite this past week was absolutely great. And then like, you know, WWE just has too many shows a week to watch and, you know, to watch anything or everything because it just becomes overwhelming. But I love wrestling and I think it's great. And I tell a joke, talk about it on stage. I have a whole joke about it. Love it.
Good for you, sir. Yeah. I've always told people, you know, it doesn't care if you go away, you'll probably come back. And more importantly, I've discovered that with all these jiu-jitsu and MMA guys is they're like, dude, that's lame. And I was like, okay. If I drop a reference, let's see how fast they get it. And I'll drop a reference and they'll be like, yeah, dude, that was a pretty cool one. I was like, that was literally last week. You're a nerd. I figured it out. Nice try. Failed the test.
The only reason because when I talk to people about it and I'm like, you know, because all the time in Hollywood, if I say like I like professional wrestling, there's always like a reaction.
Right.
And I'm always like, yeah, it's great. The stories they tell, like, I'll put it against any TV show. Some of the moments. Are there a lot of bad moments in WWE?
Absolutely.
And even AEW, like 100%. But there's some great, for every, let's say the food fight was a little goofy and
Right.
potentially a little silly. Was there also the Bray Wyatt match, which told this really weird, twisted like story, and I was like, this is cool.
Yeah. And I tell people, I was like, listen, if you're worth anything as a comedy writer, you have to at least entertain and kind of go, all right, I see you here. Because to me, throwing someone off of a building without really showing where they're going to land is leading you to believe, did they just kill Rey Mysterio Jr.? Like, is that what we're supposed to take about this?
Oh yeah.
And then you just go, okay, well, we're good. He'll show up tomorrow. He'll respawn. We're fine. But to me, I'm
AJ
like,
Styles got buried alive a month ago. He was fine.
He's fine. But did I also go see a movie called Crank 2? Yeah. Do you know why? Because the promotional poster said, yeah, he died, but he got better. And I said, good enough explanation for me. Did you watch The Sixth Sense because you knew something happened at the end? No, but when you did, you went nuts because you're like, oh man. Listen, things happen, they tell great stories, and as long as you enjoy them, enjoy them. And if you don't like them, who cares? Don't enjoy it then.
Yeah.
Find something else.
This notion that, and we won't reference the specific human, but this notion that people like wrestling are losers or potentially dumb is just not something I agree with, and I think is slightly unfair.
Oh, I mean, the funniest part about stuff like that is I look at it and I say, oh, he's cutting a heel promo. Let him do his business. Whether he knows it or not, the ironic intent is still there. Like, he's still exactly proving that wrestling exists. Everything's wrestling. Our president is in the Hall of Fame for the WWE.
Mm-hmm.
Like, everything is wrestling. And at one point, if you think somebody's too cool for it, well, look, there's LeBron James holding up a flip phone from a wrestling event with Stone Cold to Steve Austin that he took a photo of, and you go, man, that was 2002. That was what we all did then. All right, well, That explains what that is. So anyway, let's do this, man. I know that you're trying to do some shows that are coming up. You have a really cool spin on trivia shows and comedy shows. So tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So a company called Don't Tell Comedy, which is one of my favorite companies in the comedy world. They do shows in any place that isn't a comedy club, basically. Do you name a place, we've done it. I love doing their shows, and then due to this whole thing, we sort of have been working on a trivia format where categories are done by comics. So comics are sending in questions. They do it in their own spin. It's really funny. It should be a really funny way to do trivia. Our first show is Thursday, so we're going to find out how much people like it. But, it's just about creating stuff. We just were like, oh, this seems really fun. And we've been working on it for a while, and we're really pumped about it. And then I am not afraid to do stand-up on Zoom. I've started to embrace it as much as I can while knowing that the second this is over, I'll never do it again. And so I'm on doing all the Zoom shows and really genuinely enjoying it.
Good for you, man. I'm glad that's the case, because I think there's a way to entertain the people via comedy like this. And I got to tell you, man, it's weird because I wanted to do digital when at the time we were transitioning to this and there were audiences. And now that there is no audiences, I want an audience back. Like, I'm like, give me a heckler. Give me any of that. Man, I miss it. Just that proxemics of being near people,
Oh, for sure. But you do Nowhere Comedy Club or KO Comedy, a couple places that are doing it really well, where you have audience members, you can hear them laugh. Mm-hmm. And you do get that feeling. And, look, it's wrestling without a crowd. It's not the same. But, I headlined at Nowhere Comedy Club 2 weeks ago, and I'm probably going to do another one in maybe a month or so. So keep an eye out for it, because I really enjoyed it. And afterwards, somebody contacted and was like, hey, I'm probably the most connected to people I've felt was that show. It was really cool. I could hear laughs. We all were watching this thing. You're reacting to us. It just felt like I was part of a group. And I was like, that's really cool. It's not what I want to do comedically, but for the time being, if I can make somebody feel that way, it's like seems well worth it to me.
And I guarantee you, the people who are listening and watching, they're craving it just as much as you want to make it. So it's a very reciprocal sort of thing. It's just the whole medium of us doing any form of entertainment or television or podcasting or live shows. Like people, I've noticed our numbers gone sky high because people are like, gimme. Like they don't care. And when I'm sitting there and I go, well, when are you going to listen to it? Let me figure out what time you guys want. They're like, I don't care. I just want it so that by 8 p.m. when I want it, I want it. And they go, okay, well, you know what? We're gonna figure this out as we go. So even now I like look at some of these numbers and I'll be like, this didn't do anything to start. And then 2 days later, I'm like, oh yeah, it did. Okay. Well, we're figuring this out. You guys are all on demand now. I'm not Netflix, but I'll give it to you. And I'll figure it out as we go along. But, well, let's do this, my friend. I want you to go ahead and promote. I want to give you a minute to go ahead and tell the people where they can find you and where they can get more Danny Jolles if they want it.
The people. The biggest thing is just follow me on social media. That is currency to comics. It helps a lot. Instagram, Twitter, at Danny Jolles. It's that is always the nicest thing. I used to post a clip a week on Instagram. Obviously that's come to a halt, but there's a lot of stand up there, and then blowing up right now on Amazon Prime. Thursday. When does this come out?
Today.
Okay, so Thursday at 6:30. Don't Tell Comedy Trivia. It'll be in my Instagram bio / we just go to don'ttellcomedy.com. It'll be there. I'll be hosting it, and then just because we're talking about it, Crazy Ex-Girlfriend is on Netflix, and if you haven't watched it, it is I am a small enough part of it where I feel like I can say that I'm coming from an fairly unbiased place to say it is truly one of the most fun shows and most interesting shows ever made, and you'll have a wonderful time watching it.
Absolutely. Just creatively out of the box. It's so much fun. And, I think it's the true mixture of parodying that which it loves. So there's so much that they parody, from romantic comedies, Disney, musicals, all the things that you grow up loving, and Broadway, all these things, and it combines them into a fusion, and it becomes like a showcase for dance, singing, comedy, parody, satire, everything. Like it's got everything you can wish for, and a really sweet story that also got into like serious issues and did it in a way that was
Crazy.
Like really nice and informed an audience of things that we probably don't always talk about. So yeah, it did everything. If you basically put everything into a pot, there's something for you in there.
It's a phenomenal show.
Yeah,
it's really great. It's very fortunate career-wise, and this, you only get to be you have a long Hollywood career. You still only get to be a part of, a handful of things that you're like, wow, I was a part of a great thing. And I'm part of a lot of things that are good. But to be a part of a great thing is very rare. And I really, Crazy X is something I'm always like, I got to be a part of a great thing.
Absolutely. And when they reboot it in the future, I look forward to watching it, or, do a cast read. Hey, listen, you have no say in it, but I'm just going to keep saying it like it's a secret kind of thing where if I just manifest destiny it, then cool. Mm-hmm. That's it. Anyway, Danny, thank you so much for making the time, dude. It's great to see you. And again, so happy for all of your continued success, my friend.
Oh, buddy, you too. Thank you for having me.
That's it. That's the show. Thank you guys for tuning in. We appreciate you watching. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give us a like or a subscription or a heart. That little cares heart one. I like that one. Give us one of those. We can use one of those. Anyway, that'll do it for us here at Early Late Night. We hope you have a great rest of your evening, and be safe.